The morning sun spilled golden light across the small town of Willow Creek, painting the streets with warmth and quiet anticipation. It was one of those early spring days when the air felt crisp but inviting, and families poured into the local park for the weekend community fair. Laughter and chatter filled the air, punctuated by the occasional burst of music from a nearby stage. Stalls lined the paths, vendors selling handmade crafts, colorful balloons bobbing in the breeze, and the smell of fresh pretzels and roasted nuts drifting tantalizingly through the crowd. Among the bustling families was Emily, a lively 3-year-old with chestnut hair, tied into tiny pigtails that bounced with every step. Her bright green eyes sparkled with curiosity, the kind that made even the simplest things feel extraordinary. Today, her parents had promised her a fun morning outdoors, away from the small apartment they shared downtown. Holding tightly onto her mother's hand, Emily skipped along the park's winding paths, her tiny shoes making soft taps against the cobblestones. She was a whirlwind of energy, a small bundle of questions and wonder, constantly asking about every flower, every butterfly, and every passerby. Emily's parents, Karen and Michael, exchanged amused glances as they watched their daughter dart ahead, then circle back, tugging them toward every little thing that caught her attention. Karen laughed softly, brushing a strand of hair from Emily's face. "Slow down, Pumpkin," she said, crouching slightly to meet her daughter's eager gaze. Emily, undeterred, wriggled free and pointed at a group of children laughing near the playground. "Slide," she shouted, and before her mother could respond, she was running toward the swings, her laughter trailing behind her like a ribbon knot. It was then that Emily noticed something different, something that didn't belong among the balloons and music and the hum of everyday life. Near the center of the park, a small crowd had gathered around a fenced area marked with bright yellow tape. Karen and Michael followed, curious, and found themselves amid an unusual scene. Police officers demonstrating their K-9 unit. The officers stood at attention, calm and professional, while their dogs, majestic German Shepherds and Belgian Malinois, sat poised, ears perked, eyes sharp and watchful. Emily's gaze fixed immediately on one particular dog, a large, striking German Shepherd named Rex. There was something about him that made her stop in her tracks. Perhaps it was the way he moved, precise and confident, or the deep, intelligent look in his eyes that seemed to see far beyond the crowd. Unlike other children who squealed and clapped at the dog's tricks, Emily stood silently, her tiny hands clutching her mother's skirt. Her bright green eyes didn't follow the frisbees or tunnels the dog was navigating. They were locked onto Rex himself, studying him with an intensity that made her mother smile uneasily. "Emily, honey, stay close," Karen whispered, gently pulling her daughter back toward her. Emily obeyed, but only partially. Her attention remained fixed on the German Shepherd. The dog was performing routine obedience drills, responding to his handler's commands with flawless precision. He jumped through hoops, dashed to retrieve toys, and obeyed hand signals that would confuse most adults. The crowd cheered with each successful trick, but Emily remained eerily silent, her expression unusually serious for a child her age. And then it happened. Emily pointed a small finger directly at Rex and whispered, almost startlingly clearly, "Bad man." Karen blinked, startled. "What did you say, sweetie?" she asked, crouching down to look into her daughter's wide, serious eyes. "Bad man," Emily repeated, her voice soft but deliberate. Michael chuckled nervously, brushing off the comment. "That's our girl, imagining things again." He ruffled Emily's hair, trying to coax a laugh from her, but Emily didn't smile. Instead, her gaze intensified, unwavering, as if she was looking right through the crowd at something only she could see. Officer Daniels, the K-9 handler, noticed the sudden pointing and the girl's words. A tall, broad man with a kind face and sharp eyes, he approached, curious. "Hi there, little lady," he said gently. What did you say? Emily repeated. Once more, bad man. Daniels tilted his head, puzzled. Children sometimes said strange things, repeating words they overheard, or inventing scenarios from their imagination. But there was something different in Emily's tone, something that suggested she truly meant what she said. Rex, seemingly in tune with Emily's focus, stiffened slightly. His ears pricked, his eyes locking onto a point beyond the fence where the demonstration was taking place. He growled low in his throat, not aggressive, but alert. Officer Daniels exchanged a quick glance with his partner, Officer Thompson. Both men were seasoned professionals. They had worked with these dogs for years and knew when something was unusual. Rex's behavior was atypical. He wasn't reacting to the commands or the usual distractions of a park demonstration. He was reacting to something else, something subtle yet important. The crowd, initially amused by Emily's innocent remark, began to notice the dog's unusual behavior. Whispers spread like wildfire. Why is the dog growling? What's he looking at? Emily's parents, now slightly concerned, knelt down to pull her closer. Corinne's heart pounded. How could a tiny 3-year-old notice anything significant? And why did the dog, trained for detection and protection, suddenly react as if Emily had pointed out a real danger? Emily, still clutching her mother's skirt, pointed again, this time more insistently, and repeated the 2 words, "Bad man." Her voice, small but unwavering, carried through the space between the adults and the dog. The crowd fell silent, curiosity replacing amusement. Corinne's stomach tightened. She had always known her daughter had a sharp mind, but never had she seen such focus, such instinct, in someone so young. Officer Daniels took a step closer, his voice calm but authoritative. "Rex, heel," he commanded softly, but the dog did not immediately comply. Instead, Rex's gaze followed Emily's pointing finger, alert and watchful, moving slowly toward the edge of the demonstration area. Officer Daniels felt a ripple of unease. It was as if the child had seen something he and Rex had not yet fully detected. The professional in him couldn't ignore it. The man in charge of the demonstration, Sergeant Whitman, approached, his brow furrowed. "Everything okay?" he asked, glancing at the little girl and then at the dog. Daniels shook his head slightly. "Something's off," he said quietly. "That girl. She just pointed something out. And Rex is reacting. I can't explain it yet." Emily's parents felt their hearts race. What had their daughter seen? Surely it was nothing dangerous after all. This was a sunny park during a public fair. But Emily's unwavering gaze and Rex's unusual alertness suggested otherwise. The crowd, sensing tension, started to form a loose circle, murmuring and craning their necks toward the direction Emily had indicated. Emily's small finger remained extended, trembling slightly with focus. "Bad man," she repeated, louder this time. Her words, though brief, carried a weight no one could ignore. Officer Daniels knelt to her level. "Okay, little lady," he said gently. "Can you show me where?" Emily's lips formed a determined line, and she pointed with conviction. Daniels, trained to trust his dog's instincts, decided to follow the lead. Rex growled once, low and controlled, then began moving toward the spot Emily had indicated, nose twitching as he sniffed the air. The crowd leaned forward, tension replacing curiosity. Emily's parents gripped each other's hands, a mix of fear and awe coursing through them. Emily had simply pointed, said 2 words. And yet, that small action had captured the attention of a seasoned police officer and his highly trained canine. In that moment, time seemed to slow. The laughter, music, and chatter of the park faded into the background. All that mattered was the girl, the dog, and the unseen presence they had somehow sensed. Emily, still 3 years old, with no knowledge of danger or crime, had just set in motion a chain of events that no one, including the adults watching, could have predicted. And none of them realized it yet. But what happened next would leave everyone at Willow Creek Park stunned, a story they would tell for years to come. The small crowd in Willow Creek Park watched, their chatter quieting to nervous murmurs, as Officer Daniels carefully followed Rex's gaze. The German Shepherd's posture was tense, muscles coiled, eyes sharp. Emily, standing close to her mother, did not move an inch. Her small finger still pointed, and her voice, though soft, repeated the same two words that had already stunned everyone. "Bad man?" Karen crouched next to her daughter, brushing a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "Honey, do you see someone scary?" she asked gently. Emily nodded, her tiny brows furrowed, lips pressed together as if concentrating deeply. She didn't speak again, but her eyes remained fixed on something unseen by anyone else in the crowd. Her innocence, combined with her absolute certainty, unnerved Karen more than she expected. Officer Daniels stood a few steps away, speaking quietly into his radio. Unit 2 maintained visual on the demonstration perimeter. "Rex has alerted, and we're investigating a potential threat." The officer's voice, calm yet firm, carried authority. He glanced down at Emily, his trained eyes studying her for any sign of exaggeration or play. But there was none. The little girl's expression was pure focus. Rex growled again, low in his throat, a sound that was not aggression but warning. The dog moved slightly toward the fence line, sniffing and pacing with deliberate purpose. He was no longer responding to the demonstration commands, but instead following some invisible trail, some hint of danger only he could sense. The crowd, sensing the shift in energy, leaned in cautiously. Conversations had dwindled to whispered speculations. "Emily," Officer Daniels said, kneeling slightly to be at her level, "can you show me where?" The girl hesitated only a moment before pointing further toward the edge of the park, near a small grove of trees that bordered the main parking lot. Her lips moved again, repeating her two words. "Bad man." Daniel's brows furrowed. It was highly unusual for a child of 3 to have such clarity of observation and repetition. His partner, Officer Thompson, exchanged a glance. Understanding the unspoken urgency. Michael knelt beside Karen, holding Emily's other hand. His heart thumped in his chest. Could it be nothing? He asked, though his voice carried more tension than curiosity. Karen shook her head slowly. She could feel, in the pit of her stomach, that her daughter had seen something real, something important. Emily's eyes did not waver, and Rex's behavior confirmed it. There was a presence, a danger, that had somehow escaped the attention of every adult around. Meanwhile, the man Emily had unwittingly noticed lingered near the parking lot. He was average in appearance, nondescript, dressed in dark clothes, but there was an unmistakable tension in his movements. He glanced around nervously, shifting his weight, adjusting a bulky backpack that seemed unusually heavy. Unaware that he had already drawn the attention of a toddler and a police dog, he attempted to blend into the bustling crowd. Rex, however, did not ignore him. The dog's ears twitched, nostrils flaring as he locked onto the man's scent. He barked sharply, circling the man in a controlled but insistent pattern. The crowd gasped softly. People began to notice the unusual reaction. "Why is the dog acting like that?" whispered an elderly woman in the front row. Children clutched their parents' hands, sensing the tension even if they didn't understand its source. Officer Daniels approached the man cautiously, hand resting near his belt. "Sir, step this way," he commanded calmly but firmly. The man's eyes widened, a flash of panic crossing his face. He hesitated, adjusting the strap of his backpack as if trying to appear casual. Emily's tiny finger pointed unerringly toward him, and she repeated, "Bad man." Her voice was insistent now, louder, carrying over the murmurs of the crowd. Karen and Michael exchanged shocked glances. Their daughter had not only identified someone acting suspiciously, but had done so with a certainty that made their own instincts pale in comparison. Around them, bystanders whispered excitedly, some filming the unfolding scene on their phones. The fair's music seemed distant, as though the normal world had paused to witness this unlikely alert. Officer Thompson arrived at Daniel's side, quietly surveying the man and his surroundings. "Looks nervous," Thompson observed in a low tone. "Could be just jittery, or could be something more." Daniels nodded, keeping his gaze steady on both the man and the dog. Rex barked again, his stance protective, signaling that he had identified a potential threat. Emily, still gripping her mother's hand, seemed oblivious to the attention of the crowd, focused solely on the man. The tension escalated when the man attempted to step away from the crowd, feigning casual interest in a food stand. Rex, sensing movement, let out a short growl and stepped closer. "Stay there," Daniels said sharply. The man froze, realizing that his behavior had been observed and that the dog was not to be ignored. Emily, as if sensing his fear, repeated her words once more. "Bad man." The crowd's murmurs grew into a collective gasp. Bystanders began to form a semicircle around the unfolding drama. Parents lifted their children slightly to see, and even the vendor selling pretzels paused, eyebrows raised. Everyone could sense that this was no ordinary fair moment. Something was happening, something extraordinary. Daniels signaled for backup, his voice into the radio calm but commanding. "All units, perimeter secured. Possible threat at the east edge of the park. K-9 unit on alert." Within moments, additional officers arrived, moving discreetly but efficiently to monitor the situation. The man's attempts to appear normal were futile. His every movement was now under scrutiny from trained eyes, and from a German shepherd whose instincts had already identified him as suspicious. Emily's parents had no words. Karen whispered to Michael, "I can't believe it. She just knew." Michael nodded, gripping her hand tightly. Their daughter's innocence, her small stature, and her clarity in the situation made them realize that sometimes insight comes from the most unexpected places. The man shifted uneasily, his gaze darting to Rex and then to Officer Daniels. Panic began to show more clearly across his face. Daniels remained calm, hand hovering near his belt, voice steady. "Sir, we need you to step aside and open your backpack." A man froze, then faltered, as though weighing whether to comply or flee. Rex barked sharply, signaling urgency. Emily, sensing the importance of the moment, repeated her words with startling clarity. "Bad man." Her voice, tiny but resolute, carried through the tense park like a signal to everyone watching. "Pay attention. Something is happening." The crowd was silent now, holding their collective breath, caught in a moment that seemed suspended between normalcy and danger. Officer Daniels moved closer, assessing the situation. His years of training told him that Rex's behavior was reliable. The dog never made a mistake in detection. And Emily? Well, Emily had simply pointed, spoken 2 words, and unwittingly identified a potential threat. It was extraordinary. Almost miraculous. The man's hands shook visibly as Daniels took a step forward. The crowd, sensing the climax, leaned in further. Phones were raised, capturing the tense scene, yet no one dared interrupt. Emily stayed rooted by her mother, her finger unwavering, her voice repeating the same warning. Rex remained alert, focused entirely on the man, a silent sentinel ready to act. In the midst of a sunny, ordinary park filled with laughter and music, a small girl and a police dog had identified something sinister that adults had missed. The stage was set for the next moment, the one that would transform this quiet community day into a story of astonishment, courage, and the extraordinary insight of a 3-year-old. The man's breathing was shallow, his hands fidgeting with the strap of the bulky backpack as he stood frozen near the edge of Willow Creek Park. The cheerful hum of the fair, the laughter of children, the soft music from the stage, and the aroma of roasted nuts seemed to fade into the background. All eyes were on him now, drawn there by the unlikeliest of alerts. A 3-year-old girl and a police dog. Emily's tiny finger still pointed unwaveringly, and her voice, soft but piercing, repeated, "Bad man." A shiver ran through Karen and Michael. Their daughter had never spoken with such conviction before, and her gaze never wavered from the man. It was as if she saw something invisible to everyone else, something only she and Rex could sense. Rex, the German shepherd, growled low, a sound that was not mere barking, but a signal of warning. He began pacing in a tight circle around the man, nostrils flaring, eyes locked, every muscle in his body taut with alertness. Officer Daniels moved cautiously, hands resting near his belt, voice steady but firm. "Sir, please stay where you are. We need to check your bag." The man flinched and glanced around, realizing he had been observed. He opened his mouth as if to speak, but quickly shut it, clearly weighing his options. Was he going to try to run, or was compliance his only chance? The dog, however, gave no opportunity for hesitation. Rex's gaze followed his every micro-movement, ears swiveling, ready to react at the first sign of danger. Officer Thompson arrived at Daniel's side, scanning the perimeter. The crowd had grown silent, their curiosity now tinged with tension and fear. Phones were raised, capturing the scene, but no one dared interfere. Children clung to parents' hands, some peeking from behind them, sensing the gravity of the situation. Even the food vendors had paused their sales, watching the drama unfold. The festive morning had transformed into a moment of suspense no one could have predicted. Emily's mother knelt next to her daughter, whispering, "Honey, it's okay. You're safe." Emily didn't respond. She just repeated the same 2 words, her eyes fixed on the man. Karen felt a mix of awe and fear. How could a toddler, barely able to form full sentences, perceive something that seasoned adults and a professional police dog noticed simultaneously? Her heart pounded. Daniels gestured for backup to create a small, controlled perimeter around the man. "Keep everyone back. Don't let anyone approach," he instructed. Within seconds, uniformed officers positioned themselves strategically, forming a semicircle that blocked any potential escape. The man shifted uneasily, his foot tapping, his fingers clutching the straps of the backpack tightly. His face betrayed panic, his eyes darting from Rex to the officers, and finally to the small girl who had identified him. Rex's growl intensified, low and controlled, as he sniffed the man's clothing and the air around him. He then sat abruptly, a trained signal that indicated detection. Daniels and Thompson exchanged a subtle, tense look. They both knew what that signal meant. The dog had detected something possibly dangerous in or around the man. Emily, witnessing the dog's response, pointed more insistently and repeated, "Bad man." Her voice rang clear, unshakable. The man's hands shook visibly as Daniels approached slowly, voice calm but commanding. "Sir, open your backpack, please." The man hesitated, his eyes widening in fear. A bead of sweat trickled down his temple. The crowd remained silent, holding their collective breath. Even the usually indifferent teenagers at the edge of the fair were glued to the scene, sensing that this was no ordinary police interaction. Emily's small voice repeated once more, "Bad man." The crowd turned to see her, a tiny figure in the midst of chaos, pointing directly at the nervous adult. Some adults whispered, "How does she know?" Others muttered about intuition or luck. But Officer Daniels, trained to recognize threats and instinctive human cues, knew this was more than coincidence. The alignment of Emily's words, her focus, And Rex's behavior was extraordinary. The man's eyes darted toward the crowd, calculating, trying to determine if anyone had noticed his nervous movements. His backpack bulged slightly under the strap, giving away that he was carrying something heavy or potentially dangerous. Daniels held his ground, voice firm. "Sir, step aside from the crowd and open your bag slowly." With a hesitant nod, the man complied, his movements stiff, mechanical. Rex remained alert, sitting patiently, but watching every micro-expression, every twitch, every movement. Emily's finger never wavered, her gaze locked. Her instincts, untrained yet remarkably precise, seemed to anticipate the next move before anyone else could react. The crowd whispered again. "Do you think he's dangerous?" One woman asked. A man near the edge of the circle shook his head, unable to believe the scene before him. A toddler had pointed, a dog had detected, and now an adult man ordinary in appearance was under scrutiny. The moment felt surreal, almost cinematic. Daniels motioned for Thompson to stand by. "Rex, stay." The dog obeyed partially, still alert, but allowing Daniels to inspect the situation more closely. Slowly, Daniels reached for the backpack, gesturing for the man to unzip it fully. The man's hands trembled. He glanced at Emily briefly, as if recognizing the gravity of what the little girl had said. The realization of being exposed, of being caught, began to show in his features. Emily's mother whispered encouragement softly, though she felt her own pulse racing. "You did so well, baby." "Just like that," Karen said, though the words sounded surreal even to her. She could hardly believe the morning had escalated, from a sunny fair to a scene of tension and potential, danger all triggered by her 3-year-old daughter. Man's movements became more desperate as Daniels carefully pulled open the top of the backpack. The crowd leaned in, their collective breath held, unsure what they would see. Children whispered to their parents, pointing at Emily and Rex, eyes wide with curiosity and awe. Emily, oblivious to the tension, simply watched, her finger still extended, her voice ready to repeat the words if needed. Suddenly, the man shifted, and a metallic clink echoed faintly from the bag. Rex's ears pricked, his stance rigid. Daniels tensed. Emily, sensing the escalation, repeated again, "Bad man." Her small voice, fearless and precise, resonated with a clarity that silenced even the murmurs of the adults around her. Officer Thompson took a cautious step forward, glancing at Daniels. "Rex isn't wrong. There's definitely something here," he murmured. Daniels nodded, maintaining a calm but authoritative demeanor. Every second felt stretched, the suspense almost unbearable. The crowd felt it too, the collective tension of a potentially dangerous situation, intensified by the unlikely alliance of a toddler's instincts and a trained police dog. Man's hands trembled as he finally lifted the flap of the backpack. Inside, various items hinted at illicit intent tools, containers and materials that seemed out of place in a peaceful park setting. Daniels motioned for Thompson to secure the perimeter further while he examined the contents. The man's eyes darted around, realization dawning that he had been exposed. Emily's finger wavered slightly, but remained pointed, and her voice once again, unwavering, spoke the same words. "Bad man." The crowd, sensing the culmination of the suspenseful moments, gasped collectively. No one could deny it now. The tiny girl had seen what adults had missed, and the police dog had confirmed it. The ordinary day at Willow Creek Park had transformed into an extraordinary demonstration of intuition, courage, and the unexpected power of a child's observation. Karen held Emily tightly, a mix of awe, fear, and pride swirling in her chest. Michael placed a reassuring hand on his daughter's head, marveling at the tiny girl's clarity and courage. The crowd, initially skeptical, now watched with admiration and disbelief, recognizing the unlikeliest of heroes standing in front of them. A 3-year-old girl, whose words had triggered a chain of events that could prevent harm. As Daniels began coordinating with backup officers to ensure the man was properly detained, the crowd slowly started to relax. The whispers and glances toward Emily and Rex never stopped. The sense of disbelief lingered. How could a child, a toddler, have perceived something so real, so dangerous, that seasoned officers and trained eyes had initially missed? In the heart of Willow Creek Park, a lesson had unfolded. Innocence could perceive what experience sometimes overlooked. And at the center of it, a little girl and a German shepherd had become an unlikely team, drawing the attention of the entire community. The air in Willow Creek Park had shifted. The cheerful buzz of families enjoying the fair, the aroma of popcorn and roasted nuts, and the strains of distant music had faded into an almost tangible tension. The crowd had grown silent, leaning forward in anticipation as Officer Daniels, a seasoned veteran of the K-9 unit, squared his shoulders and focused on the nervous man at the park's edge. The man's backpack bulged oddly, giving him a heavy, unbalanced appearance. His eyes darted frantically from the officers to the crowd, and finally to a small figure near his feet, a 3-year-old girl whose finger pointed directly at him. Emily's lips moved again, repeating those two chilling words, "Bad man." Each repetition seemed to echo louder than her sighs would suggest, penetrating the ambient noise and grabbing the attention of everyone present. Rex, the German shepherd, growled low and controlled, pacing with deliberate precision. He circled the man once, sniffing the air and the ground near him, signaling to Officer Daniels that the dog had detected something unusual or potentially dangerous. Daniels' mind raced. The alignment of Emily's pointed finger, her repetitive words, and Rex's professional alert was extraordinary, perhaps unprecedented. He knew instinctively that the situation required immediate and controlled action. "Rex, heel," Daniels commanded softly. The dog obeyed partially, maintaining a defensive stance, but remaining focused on the man. The officer's partner, Officer Thompson, moved to block the man from retreating toward the crowded park, while additional backup officers began forming a secure perimeter. Civilians were gently guided away, their curiosity tempered by the officer's firm, calm instructions. Karen crouched near Emily, her heart pounding. "Sweetie, it's okay. You're safe," she whispered, though her voice betrayed a tremor of fear. Emily didn't respond verbally. She only nodded slightly, eyes never leaving the man. Michael's hand rested protectively on Emily's shoulder, as though physically grounding her in a world suddenly fraught with tension. The man shifted, his body taut with anxiety. He took a hesitant step back, as if calculating his next move. Each micromotion was noticed by Rex, whose ears twitched and eyes never wavered. Daniel's gaze flicked to the small crowd, now a silent audience, and then back to the man. "Sir, please open your backpack slowly," he instructed, voice calm, yet carrying unmistakable authority. The man's fingers trembled. A bead of sweat ran down his temple, glinting in the morning sun. His eyes flickered nervously toward Emily, as if recognizing the gravity of her words and the dog's alertness. He slowly unzipped the backpack, hands shaking visibly, every movement deliberate yet hesitant. The crowd collectively held its breath. Even children seemed to sense that something serious was unfolding, eyes wide and lips parted in silent awe. Rex barked sharply, a controlled, single bark that signaled attention and readiness. Daniels noticed it instantly. The dog had confirmed that the man was indeed a threat, or at least suspicious. Emily's small voice rang out again. "Bad man." Each repetition reinforced the urgency of the situation. The adults around her could not ignore the uncanny alignment of intuition and training. Officer Thompson edged closer, keeping a safe distance while ready to respond. "He's definitely nervous," Thompson murmured, his eyes scanning the crowd and the man's movements. Daniels nodded. Stay sharp. Rex isn't wrong. The seasoned officer felt a mix of disbelief and disbelief that a toddler could perceive danger, reassurance that the dog's instincts confirmed threat. The man's hands moved to unzip the main compartment of the backpack. The crowd, held at a safe distance, leaned forward collectively, phones raised but hesitant to interrupt. Children clung to their parents' hands, peering curiously. Emily's finger remained pointed, her eyes sharp, unwavering. She did not waver, did not hesitate. Her words, repeated with uncanny precision, had drawn the attention of everyone around. Inside the backpack, Daniels noticed items that immediately triggered concern. Several tools that could be used for breaking and entering, a small but heavy metal container, and miscellaneous objects whose presence in a public park seemed out of place. The man's expression tightened as Daniels leaned in slightly. He had realized he was exposed. The sudden convergence of attention from a toddler, a dog, and trained officers left him cornered. Step aside from the crowd, Daniels instructed, motioning to the man. Hands on the backpack slowly. The man complied reluctantly, shifting his weight nervously from one foot to the other. His eyes flicked toward Emily again, and for a brief moment, a shadow of fear crossed his face. The crowd collectively gasped, sensing the culmination of tension, the climax of the morning's drama. Emily, standing small but resolute, repeated her warning once more. Bad man. The crowd looked at her in stunned silence, a mixture of admiration and disbelief on every face. Her mother wrapped an arm around her, as if both protecting her and grounding her, marveling at the child's instinctual clarity. Karen whispered softly, "You're so brave, baby." "You're amazing." Emily only nodded, eyes fixed on the man, sensing the importance of her alert. Rex's stance shifted slightly, ready to react at the first sign of aggression. Daniels, trained in reading both canine behavior and human body language, recognized that the dog had fully identified a threat. Every muscle in Rex's body was taut, a silent but clear warning. The alignment of a toddler's instinct with a dog's trained precision was extraordinary, a phenomenon that few officers had ever witnessed. Backup officers moved into position, securing the perimeter more tightly. They guided the crowd a few steps back, ensuring that no one could inadvertently interfere while maintaining the ability to witness the unfolding events. The man, now visibly sweating, stood frozen, backpack in front of him, hands shaking. He realized that his ordinary attempt to pass unnoticed in the park had failed spectacularly. Daniels stepped forward, voice calm but authoritative. "Open the backpack fully." Slowly. The man hesitated, glancing once more at Emily, whose finger had never wavered. "Bad man," she repeated, her voice calm yet firm, a small voice carrying more weight than most of the adults present could manage. Rex barked sharply again, signaling the dog's continued alert and confirming the seriousness of the moment. As the man slowly unzipped the bag, several items became visible, causing Daniel's eyes to narrow in professional assessment. There were tools that suggested burglary or tampering, a small container that could contain hazardous material, and miscellaneous items whose presence in the park was immediately suspicious. The man's face revealed panic and realization. He had been caught, exposed by the unlikeliest of witnesses, a 3-year-old girl and a police dog. Officer Thompson edged closer, prepared to secure the suspect if necessary. "We've got him," Thompson murmured under his breath, though his eyes never left the man's movements. Daniels nodded slightly, his mind processing the extraordinary circumstances. This wasn't just routine. This was an event that would likely be remembered in Willow Creek for years to come. Emily's mother held her daughter tightly, whispering words of reassurance. Karen's heart swelled with pride and disbelief. Her daughter, tiny and seemingly fragile, had played a pivotal role in exposing a potential threat. The crowd, now fully aware of the gravity of the situation, murmured in admiration and disbelief. Phones captured the scene. Children clutched parents' hands. And even the fair's vendors paused, their curiosity and concern palpable. Rex remained alert, his body tense but obedient to Danielle's commands. The dog's instincts had aligned perfectly with the observation of a toddler, creating a combination of intuition and training that had exposed a man who might have caused trouble. Emily, tiny and unassuming, had delivered a warning no adult had anticipated, and Rex had confirmed it. The park, once a place of casual enjoyment, had become a stage for a remarkable convergence of perception, training, and courage. Daniels gestured for the man to step aside, ensuring no one else was within reach, and began coordinating with backup officers to secure the bag fully and assess its contents. Emily's finger never wavered, and her words, though simple, had initiated a series of events that demonstrated the profound impact of observation, even from the smallest and most unexpected sources. In the midst of the tension, Corinne whispered softly, brushing Emily's hair back. "You helped everyone, baby. You did it." Emily's eyes met her mother's briefly, as if acknowledging the words, but then returned to the man and Rex. Her small voice repeated once more, "Bad man," a statement that would echo in the memory of everyone present, long after the immediate danger had passed. Willow Creek Park, once bustling with normalcy, had transformed into a scene of suspense, courage, and the unexpected power of a child's intuition. Emily and Rex together had created an extraordinary moment that none of the adults could have anticipated. The next steps would confirm the seriousness of the man's intentions, but for now, the small girl's warning and the dog's trained alert had ensured that no one else in the park was at risk. The park was silent, tension hanging thick in the morning air. The bustling sounds of the fair, the laughter of children, the sizzle of food vendors' grills, the soft music drifting across the field had all but vanished. Every eye was fixed on the man who now stood frozen, hands trembling over the unzipped backpack, and on the German Shepherd Rex, whose taut body and sharp gaze indicated that nothing in his surroundings escaped his attention. Officer Daniels and Officer Thompson remained a step behind Rex, assessing the situation. Daniels' mind raced. The alignment of Emily's instincts, Rex's trained alert, and the man's increasingly panicked behavior suggested that what lay inside the backpack was far more serious than anyone had anticipated. The crowd's curiosity had turned to concern. They now realized that what had begun as a community demonstration had evolved into a real, unfolding incident. Emily, tiny and resolute, repeated her words for the fourth time, her voice small but carrying an extraordinary gravity. "Bad man." The phrase seemed almost surreal in the quiet that had enveloped the park. Corinne and Michael instinctively tightened their grip on her, half in protection, half in awe. Emily's gaze remained fixed, unwavering, and the sheer certainty in her eyes compelled even skeptical onlookers to pay attention. With careful, deliberate motions, the man opened the backpack fully. The contents spilled slightly into view. Various tools, crowbars, screwdrivers, wire cutters lay alongside. Several small electronic devices and containers, whose purpose was unclear, but immediately suspicious. One of the officers training instantly recognized items commonly associated with theft and tampering. The man's fingers trembled as he tried to keep the items under control, but the truth was plain. "Step back, sir," Daniels instructed calmly but firmly, maintaining control while ensuring the surrounding crowd remained safe. The man hesitated, weighing options, but the presence of multiple uniformed officers, combined with the dog's alert stance, left him little room for maneuver. Rex barked sharply, reinforcing the urgency and confirming that the situation was serious. The crowd, which had initially laughed at Emily's strange but innocent-sounding words, now exchanged murmurs of disbelief. Phones were held high, capturing each moment. Mothers pulled their children close. Elderly onlookers leaned forward, eyes wide, mouths slightly agape. Everyone could see that the simple, two-word warning of a 3-year-old had triggered a sequence of events leading to the discovery of what might have been a real threat. Daniels knelt slightly, observing the man's reactions. The tools and electronics in the backpack, while harmless individually, suggested preparation for illicit activity. Wires, tape, and small metal containers hinted at tampering, possibly theft or more dangerous intentions. His gut, honed over years of field experience, told him this was serious. The unassuming appearance of the man allied the potential danger that his backpack now revealed. Emily, still standing near her mother, did not flinch. Her finger remained extended, her eyes locked on the man, repeating her warning silently, as if the words themselves reinforced the gravity of the situation. Karen whispered softly, pride and fear mixing in her voice. "You were right, baby. You saw what no one else did." Michael, standing beside them, shook his head in disbelief. He had never seen his daughter exhibit such focus or awareness. Officer Thompson moved closer, keeping a careful distance from the man and his backpack. "These items suggest intent," he said quietly to Daniels. "We should secure him immediately." Daniels nodded subtly, maintaining a calm exterior, but preparing for rapid action. The man's face betrayed his awareness of being caught. Sweat glistened along his hairline, his eyes darting nervously between Rex, the officers, and the crowd. Suddenly, Rex barked sharply, a single piercing sound that commanded attention. The dog circled the man once more, nostrils flaring, signaling the detection of something particularly alarming. Emily's lips formed the words again, this time almost instinctively. "Bad man." Her repetition reinforced the dog's alert, creating a striking alignment of innocence and trained instinct that held the crowd spellbound. Daniels gestured subtly to Thompson, who moved quickly to secure the man. Hands raised, the man complied reluctantly, the realization of exposure fully sinking in. "Back away from the bag," Daniels instructed firmly. Rex remained alert, moving slightly to block any sudden movement, his presence both intimidating and reassuring. The man's shoulders slumped slightly. He understood that his chance to evade detection had vanished. With methodical precision, Daniels began inspecting the backpack's contents further. Wire cutters, small electronic devices, and what appeared to be containers of unknown material were carefully examined. Each item told a story of preparation that was inappropriate for a community park and potentially threatening. The significance of Emily's observation became increasingly clear. Her simple words had led to the identification of someone with suspicious intent before any harm could occur. The crowd murmured, awe and disbelief mingling with relief. Parents whispered to their children, explaining what had just happened in hushed tones. Emily's small stature and young age did nothing to diminish the power of her intuition. In fact, the contrast between her innocence and the seriousness of the situation made the moment all the more striking. Children watched, wide-eyed, as a peer had unwittingly acted as a catalyst for a potentially life-saving intervention. Karen's heart raced. She looked down at Emily, who seemed almost oblivious to the commotion around her. "You did something incredible, honey," she whispered, brushing Emily's hair back gently. Emily nodded slightly, her focus still on the man and the dog, unaware of the full extent of what she had helped accomplish. Michael placed a protective hand on both his wife and daughter, marveling at the extraordinary sequence of events that had begun with 2 simple words. Officer Daniels secured the items from the backpack, placing them into evidence bags and making careful notes for documentation. A man was handcuffed, his protest weak and ineffective against the combined presence of officers and Rex, whose stance remained vigilant. Emily's tiny warning had led to the discovery of a potentially dangerous situation, without anyone being hurt. The officers exchanged glances, acknowledging silently the remarkable role played by a 3-year-old in the unfolding drama. The crowd, still hushed, began to relax slightly as the immediate threat was neutralized. Phones were still raised, capturing footage for social media and personal memories. But a new emotion replaced tension: awe. The realization that a small child's observation had been pivotal resonated with everyone. Even those who had initially dismissed Emily's words as childish imagination could no longer deny the power of her insight. Daniels patted Rex lightly on the neck, a gesture of appreciation and trust. "Good boy," he murmured, his eyes scanning the crowd and then returning to Emily. "And you," he added softly, nodding toward the little girl whose awareness had been remarkable. Emily looked up, briefly acknowledging him with a shy smile, before returning her attention to the scene. She had played her part. The rest was now in the hands of trained professionals. As backup units began documenting the situation and securing the area, whispers spread through the crowd about the extraordinary events that had just unfolded. "Did you see that?" A toddler pointed him out. One woman exclaimed. "And the dog knew too," said another. Parents discussed the incident in awe, emphasizing to their children the unusual but important lesson. Sometimes, perception and courage come from the smallest and least expected sources. Karen and Michael hugged Emily tightly, pride and relief mingling in their hearts. "You helped everyone today," Karen whispered. "You kept people safe," Michael nodded, holding her close. The realization settled in. A tiny child, armed with nothing but instinct and observation, had made a profound difference in her community. The man, now secured and escorted by multiple officers, cast a final anxious glance at Emily before being led away. Rex remained alert, watching closely as the suspect was moved out of the park. Emily's small figure stood unwavering, pointing, once more, almost instinctively, as if to ensure that her warning had been acknowledged. Her 2 words, repeated over and over in her clarity, had revealed a danger that could have gone unnoticed. Willow Creek Park slowly began to return to normal. The music resumed, laughter returned, and families cautiously returned to their activities. But the memory of what had occurred, the alignment of a toddler's insight, and a police dog's training lingered in every mind present. The story of Emily and Rex was already taking shape in whispers, a tale of extraordinary perception and courage that would resonate long after the day ended. For Karen and Michael, the realization was overwhelming. Their daughter, just 3 years old, had played a pivotal role in preventing potential harm. They marveled at the tiny but decisive force of her observation. The crowd's murmurs, the officer's acknowledgement, and even Rex's vigilant stance all reinforced a single truth. Sometimes, the smallest voice can speak the loudest truth. And so, in the heart of Willow Creek Park, an ordinary morning had become extraordinary, a lesson in awareness, courage, and the unexpected power of innocence. Emily's 2 words, simple, unassuming, and precise, had set in motion events that no one could have predicted, forever leaving an imprint on the hearts and minds of everyone who had witnessed it. The sun had climbed higher over Willow Creek Park, casting a warm glow on a scene that only hours earlier had been ordinary and cheerful. Families strolled cautiously among the stalls, some still gripping leftover popcorn, but the memory of the morning's events lingered in the air like an invisible thread, unbroken and unyielding. Emily, small and bright-eyed, clung to her mother's hand as they walked slowly, absorbing the shifting energy around them. The crowd had begun to murmur again, this time in awe rather than fear. Conversations that had been suspended during the tense discovery now revolved around the incredible story unfolding before their eyes. People whispered about the 3-year-old girl who had pointed out a suspicious man. Her 2 simple words, "bad man," precipitating the discovery of a potentially dangerous situation. Phones still recorded, but the awe on faces was more than mere curiosity. It was respect, disbelief, and admiration intertwined. Karen and Michael walked beside Emily, their hearts still pounding from the intensity of the morning. Karen glanced down at her daughter, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "You were amazing, baby," she whispered. Emily smiled faintly, still processing what had happened in her own way. At 3 years old, she didn't fully understand the gravity of her actions, but the adults around her knew. She had prevented what could have been a disaster. Officer Daniels, a canine handler who had witnessed the entire event unfold, knelt beside Rex for a moment of quiet reflection. "Good job, boy," he murmured, patting the dog's neck. Rex remained alert, eyes scanning the perimeter, muscles still tense, but his focus shifted toward Emily briefly, almost as if acknowledging the child's role in the morning's extraordinary chain of events. Daniel's colleagues watched silently, impressed not only by the dog's precision, but by the uncanny alignment of the toddler's instinct with Rex's training. News of the incident spread quickly through the park and into the wider community. Bystanders whispered to each other, shaking their heads in disbelief. "Did you see that little girl?" One mother exclaimed. She just knew something was wrong." Another man nodded, adding, "And the dog confirmed it. Incredible." The story, seemingly impossible at first, became a shared moment of wonder. People who had come for a sunny weekend fair were now witnesses to something extraordinary. Emily's parents could hardly believe it themselves. They walked with her toward a quieter area of the park, trying to process the whirlwind of the morning. Karen's mind raced with questions. How had Emily noticed what no one else did? How had she, a toddler, perceived danger that escaped trained adults and professionals until that precise moment? She looked down at her daughter, feeling a mix of awe, pride, and protective instinct. Nearby, Officer Daniels gathered with a few colleagues, quietly discussing the next steps. The man had been secured, the suspicious items removed and catalogued, and a preliminary investigation was underway. But what intrigued them most was not the man himself. It was the seemingly impossible chain of perception that had led to his capture. A toddler, a German shepherd, and trained officers had worked together in an unplanned but perfectly aligned sequence that had prevented potential harm. The crowd slowly dispersed, though conversations about the morning's events continued to ripple across the park. Children reenacted the scene for each other, pointing fingers at imaginary bad men and giggling with excitement. Parents tried to explain in simple terms what had happened, marveling at Emily's intuition. The story was no longer just about potential danger. It was about courage, awareness, and the power of noticing details that others overlooked. Emily, meanwhile, seemed almost oblivious to the magnitude of her actions. She pointed occasionally at Rex as if to check that he was still there, but her attention quickly shifted to the small playground nearby. Karen and Michael exchanged knowing glances. Their daughter had performed something remarkable without even fully understanding it. An instinctive act that had made a tangible difference in the world around her. Local authorities quickly began coordinating with Willow Creek Park Management to ensure that proper follow-up procedures were in place. Signs of caution were temporarily increased, officers remained in position, and security measures were reviewed to prevent any future incidents. But amid all the professional assessment, there was a shared understanding among the officers. What had happened was extraordinary, beyond protocol or expectation. As the day progressed, reporters and media personnel arrived, drawn by the story's astonishing nature. Cameras flashed, microphones appeared, and people jostled for position to hear the story directly from the witnesses. Emily, naturally shy but guided by her parents, was gently included in a few interviews. Her 2 words, repeated calmly and consistently, had become a symbol of courage and clarity, and she was treated with a mix of admiration and protectiveness. Karen held Emily close during the interviews, whispering quietly, "You helped everyone today, baby. That's very brave." Michael stood beside them, proud and overwhelmed. The officers, reporters, and crowd members listened, captivated not only by the story, but by the small girl whose intuition had made a real impact. Her innocence contrasted sharply with the seriousness of the situation, making the story even more remarkable. Officer Daniels gave a brief interview, explaining the sequence of events, while emphasizing the remarkable alignment of human and canine perception. "Rex did what he is trained to do," Daniels said, voice calm but firm. But Emily's observation, her awareness, was extraordinary. It's not every day that a 3-year-old helps prevent a potentially dangerous situation. We owe a great deal to her instincts and bravery. The crowd watching nodded in agreement, some applauding quietly, moved by the unusual and inspiring chain of events. The man who had caused the tension was taken into custody, and the preliminary assessment confirmed the items in his backpack were indeed suspicious and potentially hazardous. While no one was harmed, the incident served as a powerful reminder that awareness, attentiveness, and courage, sometimes from the most unexpected sources, could prevent harm and protect a community. As the day wore on, the park slowly returned to its normal rhythm. Families resumed their activities, the laughter and chatter returned, and the aroma of popcorn and pretzels filled the air once again. Yet the memory of what had occurred remained vivid in the minds of those who had witnessed it. A 3-year-old girl, a German shepherd, and a team of officers had together created a moment that would be remembered in Willow Creek for years to come. Karen and Michael watched their daughter play briefly on the swings, her earlier seriousness replaced by innocent joy. They marveled at her resilience and instinct, realizing that the events of the morning had not only saved the day, but had also revealed a side of Emily they had never fully recognized, a perceptiveness and courage that transcended her years. By late afternoon, reporters had begun to leave, satisfied with the coverage, while officers continued their procedural follow-ups. The story of Emily and Rex spread through the local community and online, capturing the imagination of people far beyond Willow Creek. Social media posts praised the little girl, celebrated the German shepherd, and acknowledged the officer's professionalism, creating a narrative that was both inspiring and unforgettable. Emily's parents, reflecting on the day, understood that the events had forever altered their understanding of perception and courage. Their tiny daughter, through instinct and observation, had not only pointed out danger, but had also become a symbol of vigilance and bravery in the community. Karen whispered to Michael, "She changed everything today." He nodded, watching Emily laugh and run toward a group of children, completely unaware of the profound impact she had made. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the park, Emily sat briefly on the grass, looking up at Rex, who was calmly lying nearby. Her small hand reached out, patting the dog gently. She smiled, a faint, contented smile, unaware of the accolades, the attention, or the depth of what had occurred. The world had shifted around her observation, but to Emily it had all been simple. A point, a word, an instinct. And for Willow Creek, that day became a story retold countless times, of a little girl, a police dog, and an ordinary morning transformed into the extraordinary. Word of Emily's incredible observation spread quickly beyond Willow Creek Park. Social media posts captured snippets of video, showing the little girl's tiny finger pointing steadily at the suspicious man, her lips forming the 2 words that had changed the course of the morning. "Bad man." Posts went viral within hours, drawing attention not only from the local community, but from people across the state who marveled at the seemingly impossible collaboration between a toddler's instincts and a trained police dog. News outlets soon arrived at the scene to gather first-hand accounts. Reporters crowded around Karen and Michael, cameras focused on Emily, who clung to her mother's hand. Despite the sudden attention, Emily remained remarkably composed. Her gaze occasionally drifted to Rex, who sat obediently nearby, tail wagging slowly, his presence a quiet reassurance amid the commotion. She didn't fully understand the attention she had drawn. She only knew that she had pointed and said words, and something had happened because of them. Karen and Michael answered questions as best they could, careful to protect Emily while still conveying the magnitude of her actions. She just noticed something, Karen explained. She said the words, and we didn't know what would happen. But the officers took it seriously. And, well, everyone saw what happened next. Michael nodded, adding, "We're just proud. She's our daughter, and we knew she was perceptive, but none of us expected this." Officer Daniels gave a calm, professional recounting to reporters, his eyes occasionally flicking toward Emily and Rex. "Rex did what he's trained to do, and the officers followed protocol," he said. "But what's remarkable is the alignment of Emily's observation with Rex's alert. It's rare to see such instinctive clarity in someone so young. It's a testament to the power of perception, regardless of age." His colleagues nodded in agreement, some exchanging quiet glances of admiration. Social media continued to amplify the story. Posts featured clips of Emily pointing, of Rex growling and circling the man, and of the moment when officers secured the suspicious backpack. Viewers commented in disbelief, praising both Emily and Rex, sharing stories of similar extraordinary observations by children or pets. The story struck a universal chord, a reminder that heroism can come from the most unexpected sources. The man who had been detained was formally questioned, and while no immediate danger had materialized, the authorities confirmed that the items in his backpack were suspicious enough to warrant serious concern. The investigation continued, but the public's attention remained fixed on the little girl who had triggered the discovery. People marveled at how a toddler, with only her observation and intuition, had played a pivotal role in preventing a potential incident. Emily's parents were approached by local community leaders, offering words of admiration and proposing recognition for their daughter. "We want to honor her," one leader said, "not only for her courage, but for reminding all of us that vigilance and awareness can come from anyone, at any age." Karen smiled faintly, her heart swelling. "She's just a child," she said softly. "But yes, today she made a difference." Rex, meanwhile, became something of a local celebrity. The German Shepherd had always been a dedicated K-9 officer, but now his role in tandem with Emily's observation captured public imagination. Children visiting the park sought to pet him. Parents shared stories of their own pets, and even local news highlighted the dog's training and precision. The partnership between Emily and Rex became symbolic. Instinct meets skill. Innocence meets experience. At home that evening, Karen and Michael reflected on the events. Emily sat quietly nearby, playing with a small toy, occasionally glancing at her parents as if to ensure everything was as it should be. "Can you believe what happened today?" Karen asked Michael, her voice filled with a mixture of pride and disbelief. "A toddler and a dog, stopping something. Something serious." Michael shook his head, smiling, though the tension of the morning still lingered. "I know." And she had no idea how much she changed everything. The community continued to discuss the events of the day long after the fair ended. People shared stories with neighbors, colleagues, and friends, praising Emily's intuition and Rex's trained precision. Local newspapers ran front-page articles, emphasizing the extraordinary circumstances. A toddler's insight had prevented potential danger, and a police dog had confirmed it. Emily's simple words, 2 small syllables, had captured the attention of thousands, reminding the community of the power of observation, courage, and trust. Emily herself, unaware of the fame she had garnered, returned to her everyday routines. She played in the yard, helped her mother with small chores, and occasionally pointed out animals, flowers, or objects with the same focus that had caused her parents, the police and the community to pause in awe. Her parents watched, recognizing the seed of something remarkable in their daughter, a blend of curiosity, awareness, and courage that went beyond her years. Weeks later, the incident continued to resonate. Emily and Rex were formally recognized in a small ceremony organized by the local police department. Officers, families, and community leaders gathered to honor the unusual but effective partnership. Emily received a small plaque, her tiny hands clutching it with wide-eyed wonder, while Rex was awarded a ceremonial medal for his role. The community cheered, capturing photos and celebrating both the dog's training and the child's instincts. Daniels addressed the gathering, his voice steady and heartfelt. "What we witnessed was extraordinary," he said. Rex performed as trained, Emily observed with clarity, and together, they prevented a situation that could have had serious consequences. Today, we honor their courage, insight, and the reminder that heroes come in all sizes. The crowd erupted into applause, some wiping tears from their eyes, others smiling broadly at the heartwarming and awe-inspiring moment. Emily, meanwhile, simply smiled, unaware of the weight her actions carried. She glanced at Rex, who wagged his tail slowly, and then back at her parents. To her, the day had been one of observation and simple actions. To the community, she had become a symbol of courage and perception. Karen and Michael held her close, feeling a profound mix of pride, gratitude, and wonder at their daughter's extraordinary instincts. Even after the ceremony, the story continued to spread online and in local news. Social media users shared the tale with comments ranging from disbelief to admiration. "A toddler saved the day," one post read. "Never underestimate the power of observation," wrote another. Photos of Emily holding her plaque and Rex receiving his medal circulated widely, capturing hearts and inspiring awe. In classrooms, among families, and in local businesses, people recounted the story as an example of awareness, courage, and the extraordinary capabilities that can arise unexpectedly. Emily's words, repeated simply yet profoundly, "Bad man," became emblematic of how insight, no matter how small in appearance, could have monumental impact. The events of that day continued to influence Willow Creek Park and its surrounding community. Officers reviewed safety procedures, the park implemented new awareness programs, and community members remained vigilant, inspired by the reminder that courage and perception often come in the most unexpected forms. And at the center of it all was a small girl, whose simple, instinctive words had reshaped the morning and captured the hearts of countless people. As the sun set over Willow Creek, Emily sat quietly on a swing, watching the horizon. Her tiny hand rested on Rex's fur as he lay nearby, both of them calm after a day of extraordinary events. Karen and Michael watched, marveling at the impact their daughter had made. It was a day of lessons, courage, and unforgettable moments, a day that would remain in the memory of everyone who had witnessed the remarkable alignment of innocence and instinct. The days following the incident at Willow Creek Park felt surreal to Karen and Michael. Life seemed to return to a semblance of normalcy, yet everything had changed. Their 3-year-old daughter, Emily, had gone from being an ordinary toddler to a symbol of extraordinary perception and courage. The 2 simple words she had spoken, "Bad man," echoed in their minds, a reminder of how much influence even the smallest voice could hold. The story had not only captured local attention but had spread across the state and beyond. Social media posts, news segments, and online articles celebrated Emily's instinct and Rex's trained precision. Comments flooded in, praising the little girl for her bravery and the dog for his keen senses. People shared their amazement and disbelief, wondering how a toddler could perceive danger that adults and trained professionals might overlook. Karen watched Emily play in the backyard, her tiny fingers delicately arranging colorful blocks in precise patterns. It seemed almost poetic, given the way she had observed and pointed out danger in the park. Michael sat nearby, reading quietly, but his eyes often drifted to his daughter, full of admiration. "Can you believe all of this?" he asked, shaking his head with a small smile. Karen nodded. "She's amazing," she replied. "And she doesn't even realize it yet." Rex lay nearby, his head resting on his paws, his ears flicking occasionally at the sounds of Emily's laughter. The German Shepherd had become more than just a K-9 officer. He had become a partner, a companion, and a hero in his own right. The bond between Emily and Rex had strengthened through the extraordinary events of that morning, and their connection seemed unspoken, but profound, a shared understanding of vigilance and trust. At Willow Creek Park, life had slowly returned to its usual rhythm, though traces of the morning's events remained. Park management had implemented new safety measures, and officers had conducted additional training sessions on situational awareness and community engagement. Yet the story of Emily and Rex had left an indelible mark on the park, its staff, and the community. It was a tale recounted at every gathering, a reminder that courage and perception could emerge in the most unexpected forms. Local schools began incorporating Emily's story into lessons about awareness, bravery, and responsibility. Teachers used her example to illustrate how observation and instinct could make a real difference in daily life. Children were captivated by the story of a peer whose simple observation prevented potential danger, while parents marveled at the idea that even the youngest among them could be heroes in their own right. The media continued to follow Emily and Rex's story, highlighting the unusual but effective collaboration between innocence and training. Interviews with Karen and Michael emphasized the importance of encouragement and recognition, illustrating how a supportive environment could nurture awareness and confidence even in young children. Daniels and Thompson occasionally spoke at community events, sharing insights about K-9 training, situational assessment, and the extraordinary alignment that had occurred that morning. Emily herself, blissfully unaware of the attention, continued her life with a child's simplicity. She pointed at birds, flowers, and butterflies, occasionally repeating her favorite words from the park that morning, "Bad man," in playful context, as if rehearsing her newfound expression of vigilance. Her parents encouraged her curiosity, understanding that her instinctual awareness was part of what made her unique. Months later, the man who had been detained was prosecuted, and the investigation concluded that his presence and belongings posed a potential threat, validating Emily's warning. The outcome reinforced the significance of observation, courage, and early intervention. The legal proceedings were careful to note the unusual but critical role Emily and Rex had played in preventing a possible incident. Experts highlighted the rare alignment of human intuition and canine training, emphasizing its importance as a case study in law enforcement. Circles. Karen and Michael reflected on the broader lessons of that day. "It's incredible how something so simple can have such an impact," Karen said one evening as Emily played nearby. "2 words and a point, and it changed everything." Michael nodded thoughtfully. "It's a reminder to always pay attention, to trust instincts, and to never underestimate anyone, even a 3-year-old. Their minds often return to the moment." Emily had pointed at the man, the way Rex had growled, and the collective pause of the park's visitors, a convergence of courage, instinct, and trained response that saved the day. The story of Emily and Rex became a symbol of hope and vigilance throughout the community. Families shared it with friends and neighbors, emphasizing the lessons it taught, that awareness could prevent harm, that courage could come from anyone, and that the smallest voices sometimes carried the greatest truths. Children were inspired to pay attention to their surroundings, while adults were reminded of the extraordinary potential in everyday life. Karen noticed subtle changes in Emily's behavior. She seemed more confident, more aware, and more attuned to the world around her. While still a typical 3-year-old in many ways, Emily displayed a quiet, instinctual understanding of people and situations, a precocious awareness that was hard to ignore. Karen and Michael encouraged her curiosity, fostering an environment that balanced normal childhood exploration with an appreciation for observation, and mindfulness. Remained an integral part of the family's life, often accompanying Emily to the park, school events, and community gatherings. The German Shepherd's presence was both comforting and empowering. His training and instincts complemented Emily's natural perception, forming a partnership that symbolized trust, protection, and mutual respect. Together, they became a symbol of vigilance and courage, admired and respected throughout the community. Community leaders organized a small annual event in Willow Creek Park to commemorate the day, celebrating awareness, courage, and the unique collaboration between Emily and Rex. Children participated in educational games, officers demonstrated canine training, and families shared stories of everyday heroism. The event became a beloved tradition, a reminder that vigilance and bravery could emerge from the most unexpected places. Years later, Emily's story continued to inspire. Local newspapers, social media pages, and even educational programs referenced her actions as an example of intuition, courage, and the extraordinary impact of paying attention. Karen and Michael shared the story with Emily as she grew older, emphasizing the importance of observation, integrity, and responsibility. Emily's smile always reflected a quiet pride, a recognition of the small yet powerful role she had played in protecting her community. For the residents of Willow Creek, the morning at the park was never forgotten. It remained a story passed down, retold to newcomers, recounted in classrooms, and shared among families. It became a testament to the extraordinary power of observation and instinct, showing that courage and awareness could come from anyone, at any age, and that even the smallest actions could have monumental consequences. As Emily played one warm afternoon in the park years later, Rex by her side, she paused to observe a butterfly flitting among the flowers. Her finger instinctively rose, pointing as she whispered softly to herself, "Look there." Karen and Michael watched nearby, hearts swelling with pride. They understood fully that the small acts of observation that morning had set the foundation for a lifetime of awareness, courage, and empathy in their daughter. And so, the story of the little girl, the police dog, and the ordinary morning that became extraordinary endured. It remained a tale of bravery, intuition, and the profound reminder that anyone, no matter how young, small, or seemingly ordinary, could make a real, lasting difference. Emily's two simple words, spoken with clarity and courage, had left an indelible mark on Willow Creek, inspiring generations to recognize the power of vigilance, the value of instinct, and the extraordinary potential within the smallest among us. Willow Creek Park returned to its usual rhythms, children's laughter echoing across the fields, families enjoying the sunshine, and life moving forward. But beneath the surface of ordinary days, the story of Emily and Rex lingered, a quiet yet powerful testament to the extraordinary possibilities that exist when courage, observation, and awareness align in the most unexpected ways.